me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
I learn every day, so every time I'm even engaged in an initial conversation, which does not even potentially lead to being hired and so on, I take that as a learned experience, and how do I make myself better, to be able to sell the idea of what would be appropriate for each community. Every community is different, and so it's, but that's what I've learned also. A lot of the, master plans are done by the bigger companies that basically are, it's a cookie cutter system, and what I'm saying is that it cannot be a cookie cutter system because every city, every community is different.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show Leadership Series. In this episode, we welcome back Sevi Ghose, who has not only helped us create some of our most valuable content, but has also become one of the great thought leaders in this industry. He's worked across 6 states, 5 systems, and has spent decades guiding organizations on funding, operations, strategy, and community impact. He's a consultant, a mentor, an educator, and a trusted advisor to departments across the country. Today, we're diving deep into one of the biggest challenges facing parks and rec professionals everywhere: money. Budget cuts, deferred maintenance, fees, partnerships, bonds, grants, and the creative ways cities can sustain services even in tough economic times. Get ready for practical wisdom, real stories, bold ideas, and strategies you can bring back to your department tomorrow. Let's dive in.
All right, we are live again, a few minutes early. This is to make up for all those times we've been a few minutes late. So now we're a little bit early. And we've got one of the greats with us today. He is, I think you have to be the record holder for the most time that you've helped us to create content that's valuable for this industry. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Really appreciate it. How's things going over there, Sebi?
No, it's great. No, thank you, Craig. Appreciate the opportunity. Lots of opportunities that I've been privy to in my career, and happy to share as much as I can. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I remember it was recommended that I reach out to you because you just have a wealth of knowledge that should be shared with across the country, and we want to try to capture that and hopefully spread the good news across America of all the pitfalls and all the wisdom that you've gathered over the year in Parks and Rec.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun career, and just being in 6 different states and 5 different systems, so it's been a fun career in that sense. Now I'm happy to help. I've worked with NRPA and other state organizations and giving back as best I can, as time allows. Time is obviously important,
Yeah, that's right.
And raising 3 kids and all of that too. So,
Yep. Always busy. What they say, if you want to get something done, find the busiest person and give it to them. And they always find a way to get it done.
Exactly. No, I agree. Yeah.
But okay, so before we get too far, I want to play our 300th episode. Thank you. It's been a big milestone for us to get to 300 episodes. I had a influencer friend of mine that's the kind of mile marker he said. He's like, when you get to 300 episodes, you really do discover kind of who you are, what you're doing, and how to have some degree of mastery in your craft. So special thanks to everyone, including you, Sevi, for getting us here and helping us to create something that we feel like is special for this industry. And so we'll play that. And then right after that, I'm going to play a promotion for strategic partners. What's a strategic partner? If you're a vendor that's been serving this industry for many years and would like to help us co-create and create a media company specifically for Parks and Rec, similar to how ESPN is to sports, we want to create something that Parks and Rec can call home. So I'll play those 2 back to back, and then we'll come right back and start our conversation with Sebi.
Thank you.
300 episodes. What started as a small idea, a way to share stories from the Parks and Recreation community, has grown into something truly special. From heartfelt conversations to behind-the-scenes stories that celebrate everyday heroes. Every episode, every message, every listen has been powered by you. To our loyal listeners, our partners, and every Parks and Rec professional who continues to inspire us, thank you. You've helped us grow, you've helped us evolve, and you've reminded us why we do this, to tell stories that matter. This milestone isn't just ours, it's yours too. As we celebrate our 300th episode, we look ahead to the next chapter. More stories, more community, more impact. From all of us here at DPRS Media Company, thank you for believing in us, for tuning in, and for helping us make it this far. Here's to the next 300 episodes and beyond. Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product? Growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.
All right. Before we started the show, me and Sevi were talking about kind of what we're doing and what's coming up. And I said that, you know, in the early days, we got invited to go to cover the Kentucky Parks and Rec Association. So we're coming up on 1 year because their annual event is the second week of November, which we are attending. But we're now starting to attend in the full capacity of the Daily Parks and Rec Show, DPRS Media Company, with 5 hosts now, including me, and 6 shows, and about another 6 that are kind of slated, already funded, and are kind of in the works behind the scenes. And so now we're reaching out to Parks and Rec state associations, and so we'll be going to Georgia 1 week from today, and followed by Kentucky, followed by Louisiana, and so we'll probably churn out 100 episodes just in the month of November. So by the end of November, we'll be crushing 400 episode, the 400th marker.
Awesome.
But I had a great conversation with the whole team of the California Parks and Rec Association. And they were asking some questions like, well, how is this valuable? How is what you're doing valuable to us? What do we get out of it? And I'd like to hear your response to that, since you are probably the most exposed to DPRS Media Company, have been with us since almost the very beginning, and has really helped to guide us on that path. What would be your response to what do you think the value that DPRS Media Company brings to a state association?
I think, to put it very simply, I think even same reason we go to the conferences, you know, not only to network. So this is a networking opportunity in the sense that all the individuals that have attended, your podcast, they have at least 1 or 2 items that might be new to the person listening, you know. So you go home or you go back to your work site or workspace and are able to implement that one idea or the one piece that you might not have tried before, but now you feel confident having heard it again and again during the podcast. And so yeah, it's the value of, again, getting new ideas, able to implement and checking things out and seeing what the results could be for your organization. I think that's the best piece. And I'm as you know, I'm in California now, in San Francisco, so I'm surprised, in a good way, that the CPRS staff have been able to attend to and ask that question, because I feel you're doing a great service to the profession, and thank you for the opportunity. Because again, I think it's learning from each other. So and you have individuals attending from all parts of the country, different size organizations, different types of organizations, and they all bring something. So like, even if you had to talk sports, sports in a city of 2,000 could be quite a bit different, but one idea from there could be implemented in a city of 2 million also, potentially, just to make it, program better, bigger, things like that. So
Yeah.
sorry about the long answer, but I think it's about walking away with even one idea to implement. I think is the main thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I love is each state has gifted and talented speakers that they bring on, industry veterans. They've got a very strong vendor community that show up to these state associations. And I think a lot of times the messages are just kind of stay in that state, stay in the annual meeting. And not everybody from the state, like every Parks and Rec department in the state of California, does not close the doors and attend the state association meeting. They'll get maybe 1,000 or so, and that might be representative of how many. I would say it's got to be at least 10, 15,000, maybe 20,000 professionals just in the state of California. Perhaps I'm way
more than likely, if not more. Yeah. More.
And so you're only talking about maybe, a small percentage actually even get to attend those events. And then a substantially less portion of the entire country gets exposed to how California runs their park systems and all the wisdom that is shared.
Yeah.
And so if anything, we get to amplify the message that previously was just in the physical meeting, and we get to kind of capture that and then blast it out to the whole country. Because like you said, one little nugget of information that is shared locally at the state annual convention can now be captured, and not just shared across the country, but shared throughout time.
Yeah.
That, you could say something on one of our early episodes that could bring value for the next 30 years, even after me and you kind of move on from this life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're bringing value to those that are left carrying the torch.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I think, and the fact that I think everybody brings a certain value to it too. So even a person that's maybe 2 years in as a Parks and Rec director, or even in whatever position, but they're on your podcast, are able to share their little bit of wisdom, as you shared, earlier. That's of huge value to somebody that's even starting out in the profession or is a seasoned veteran, so absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I continue to learn every day. That's why I enjoy sharing my wisdom, because in our conversations, it might veer off into something like, oh, I guess that's a great idea, I should try that out, or something.
Yeah.
Like that. So
Yeah. So what do we want to talk about today? I know we've got so many things in your head that we could cover.
Well, there's always so many things, and me, I think you've gotten to know me over the last few episodes. But no, I think today we want to talk about money again, because we're facing a lot of that challenge, which is not surprising. That's always a challenge, but money and finance, and how do we make things work even in potentially tough times, economic times. Whether it's through budget cuts or other situations, whether you're a grant-dependent organization, but the grant is, say, canceled currently, as many federal grants are. What do you do, or how do you pivot yourself to, still continue, because the community still expects you to offer the same level of service, and the programming, that's not going away. So how do you make it happen? So yeah, that's the topic for today, I guess.
Yeah, and I've got something I'm cooking in the background. It's probably going to take me a few years to launch, and a few years to get a few cities that are willing to take the leap with me on a smaller level. But in the world of Bitcoin, we have several financial institutions that are taking 10% of the borrowed amount and putting it in Bitcoin on the side.
Okay.
And then that 10% invested in Bitcoin pays off the loan, and you never have to repay the loan. And so this is already happening on the consumer level with mortgages, but a very similar tool could be used in the bond market, so that when you borrow money to rebuild or fund your 10-year master plan, that you may never have to pay that off if we can come up with a proper tool. And so I would love to help give birth to that. And I actually have a few cities that are willing to, start small and try something with that, just as a proof of concept. But man, if we could get that, imagine all the bonds that you have to pay off through tax, putting a tax burden on your community, were just wiped clean.
And actually, as a segue, not only as a tax burden, but many cities are over mortgaged, meaning that they've even mortgaged their city hall or every little asset that they have. I know at least a city in Colorado that has mortgaged pretty much every major building that they have on their system. So that includes the police station, the city hall, all the rec centers. So next time they are looking to do a project that the community might wish for or want due to a measure and so on, they'll be hard pressed to get the money because they've already over mortgaged all their facilities. And that's a common situation or a common problem across municipalities, that they're basically passing on the debt to the future generation, as you know. And then what do you do, and so and how do you retain that same level of service? Because when you have to take a budget cut, then it's a real cut, when you have no other option left.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
because
glad to hear about the Bitcoin idea. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
'cause you can, you borrow to get things done. You're trying to get stuff done today that you really can't afford to do. So you pull value out of the future, and you borrow money. But the problem you're just not having to pay back the principal. You're having to pay back that massive interest payment.
Interest
And
rate, right?
before you know it, most of your stuff is going to just pay the minimum amount, the interest payments,
Yep.
and you're really not making any progress on the principal. And it just you end up being like this college kid that racked up, $100,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah.
And now
No,
it's all you can
absolutely.
do to pay the interest payment.
Right. No, exactly. And then on the flip side of it, if you look at it, when you are in a dire strait, you're asked to take a cut. Which department gets asked the most? Parks and Recreation, which is very odd. I still haven't figured that out as to why it has to be Parks and Rec. I've always pushed back, obviously, in my positions, as to why not ask the police department or the fire department, as an example, or the streets department, public works, I mean, because I always look at the amount of assets that they have that are not being utilized to the fullest, meaning they're sitting idle. So whether it's vehicles, trucks, cars, even office buildings, things like that. So why is it only Parks and Recreation? Then the one answer that I've always been able to come up with in my head, I hope it's correct, is that we're the only one department that typically generates cash flow. So meaning we have programs that generate cash. So we have liquidity at a certain level that allows us to potentially take that cut and not see the impact in the rest of the city financial hierarchy, and maybe I'm correct, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's where, if you have that good relationship with the fire chief, the police chief, they can become your best friends also, in leveraging some of those situations where you're asked to take a cut. But if you know the fire chief or the police chief, maybe you can work together to alleviate the same situation, but do it within half of the police budget and half of your budget. So instead of taking $100 cut, now you took only a $50 cut, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, just if we treat the Parks and Rec department like a family, or even the whole city like a family, everyone wants to pitch in for the beach vacation, but nobody wants to pitch in to put a new roof on the house.
Right.
And so I look at the Parks and Rec department as they have a lot more flexibility with getting local partners to say, hey, if y'all want a playground, we can cover half of it. Can we get local businesses to pitch in and cover the other half? And that's kind of like funding the vacation versus, hey, we need a new roof on the house. And everybody like, well, that's not glamorous. And, nobody wants the credit for putting a new roof on the house, but every business wants to have their name associated with a new aquatic center or a new aging elderly community. To me, if I had to fundraise for any part of a city, I'd be like, let me be the fundraiser for the Parks and Rec department, because I feel like I can get commercial endeavors to get behind those projects.
No, absolutely. And then the next step to that is, talking about money and finances, is we're all excited about, the new facility being built or the new amenity being offered, but where do we have the dollars to maintain it? So operations and maintenance usually becomes afterthought, and then I've been at many situations, or I've heard of many situations and experienced it myself, where, oh, Sebi, you're getting this awesome new facility, but guess what? You're not getting an increased budget to take care of that. I'm like,
right.
So
right.
how do you do that? And then they say, well, by the way, you cannot charge those high fees you're thinking of to charge, to make up for the revenue loss, or the budget loss, So yeah, those challenges are very typical in typical Parks and Recreation departments. The one saving grace to this is the park districts, and we've talked about park districts before, and I'm a big fan of them. is that you know exactly where you stand on a regular basis. And that's the good, positive thing. And especially if you're a park district that's growing in population also, meaning you have land to grow. As new homes get built, new businesses come in, your portfolio also grows with it, and so that allows for that growth in your programming. And usually, if you look at park districts, they have very little in deferred maintenance if they have done things well financially, or managed it well. But whereas municipalities, you're looking at deferred maintenance in the millions. I mean, I can mention a city of Louisville, Kentucky. Our deferred maintenance was over $300 million.
Wow.
And our capital budget in our department was about $1 million on an annual basis. So you can imagine, you're barely not even making a dent. It's not even worth, I used to talk to some of the staff from the mayor's office, like, you might as well let me use the $500,000 to do other programming and not worry about capital, because sorry to add to the deferred maintenance, but I'll get more followers, or more people happy in the community and engaged, rather than trying to do a $500,000 repair on a building that needs 5 million, say, as an example.
Right. Well, let's kind of pick apart the financial situation of your typical Parks and Rec department. We can talk about the assets under management, the revenue, potential revenue generation, the deferred maintenance, maybe just kind of put together a little framework for people to understand the circumstance that Parks and Rec departments find themselves in.
Yeah, sure. So in a typical municipality, the city collects revenue. So whether it's through property taxes, other fees, utility fees, and so on. And then the Parks and Recreation is typically allocated a certain amount of that collected revenue for the city to operate the budget. And that's only one part of the Parks and Recreation department budget in the municipality. Then you have program fees. So you could be having a Zumba class to a aquatics class. You're generating that revenue, but that gets typically put back in to pay wages or pay for repairs and day-to-day operations, buying the chlorine for the aquatic center and things like that. Then you also have, you might be lucky enough to have a golf course or ice arena, which are higher end, more elite sports, where you get to charge the higher fee. So, to play golf, you might, I'm just making this up, but typically say $25 to $30. I know that's probably low golf now, but in most places you're getting $50 around. And that money allows the golf course to run as an enterprise fund facility. So not necessarily the correct word is not necessarily for profit, but the idea is that money gets enough because you have a high level of maintenance expectations with turf management, greens, chemical use, the golf courses, and maybe no chemical use also being green and so on, sustainable. So again, there are many opportunities to generate revenue, but how you use those dollars is where, plays the role as far as sustaining your department moving into the future, especially when you have budget cuts involved. And those are very basic examples. And then you elevate yourselves to the park district situation, then a set amount of your property tax goes to the park district. And that's where that stability comes in, because you know how much you're getting on a regular basis. So you might have, say, 10,000 households paying $400 a year into the park district. So, there's your $4 million. And then you have obviously fees for the programs and things like that you collect. And so that also allows you to, manage your budget moving months ahead, years ahead, many times. And then if you're also a suburb or a city area that's growing, meaning more homes are being built, then you can also plan for that. In fact, I've been in park districts where they're actually pushing for growth many times, because that's what generates the revenue for them too, because it's a direct relationship or direct formula which allows for, if 10 more homes come in, you get $40 more thousand annually, and things like that in that example I was sharing. And then the third example is more like nonprofits, because there are many nonprofit organizations, conservancies or smaller organizations in many typically rural areas or outlying areas that also operate parks and recreation programs, but they're totally dependent on the fees that they collect to run the programs. And they might be partnering or being facilitated in a facility that actually might be owned by the National Park Service or the state parks or something like that, And I'm talking about very rural areas in states like you mentioned, Kentucky earlier, Georgia, Iowa, parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, where recreation is still important. Parks and recreation is still important because your child or yourself might learn how to swim only in the municipal pool or the state park pool that might still exist, and so on. So again, I'm sharing the bigger picture, but the overall at the end of the day is the fees you pay in. There's a direct correlation to your uplifting and quality of life in the community. So, and that's where my argument would be all the time, that when they ask Parks and Recreation for budget cuts, saying that you should not take the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how you said that, you can invest in a new fire truck or a new police station, but that doesn't necessarily correlate into increased revenue. But there are many parts of Parks and Rec. I mean, special events come to mind, that if
Yeah.
you can spend a few years investing in a solid special event, that you can bring in neighboring communities and dollars for larger special events that are big economic drivers that go into, hotel and fuel and food and restaurant and tax revenue, that you really don't have in a lot of other departments. Whereas Parks and Rec, man, I have interviewed some people with some amazingly successful special events that are huge economic drivers for that city.
No, absolutely. And if I go back to about 10 years ago, you might have heard about these music festivals. There are two of them now. You started off with one. It used to be called Louder Than Life and Bourbon and Beyond. These are two of the largest music festivals held in the country, and they're held in Louisville, Kentucky. And they've become so big that they're not held in one of our parks anymore, because it used to be held in one of our parks on the riverfront. Now it's held at the large parking area by the fairgrounds, which is also tied to the Kentucky Derby parking and all of that. So, basically an open lot, so to speak, because it has grown so big. They attract close to over 400,000, but close to 500,000 people for two of those shows. Those are whole weekend shows from all over the country. And you're talking about big bands and everybody else. We used to have, I remember when they first started, 3 to 4 stages of different, sizes, depending on the size of the group. But you're right. It brought in people that drove in, 5-6 hours, or flew in, stayed the whole week, maybe even, partook of the bourbon industry, in the Louisville area and so on, bourbon and whiskey and all that. And then they got to attend the concerts over the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then flew back Sunday night. So they're staying in hotels, restaurants, and all of that became a big economic driver. And we were the beneficiary early on, because we charged a fee for the use of the park, from trash collection, just setting up the other damage to the turf and things like that. And so I do relate to that, and many organizations or municipalities like that have leveraged special events as a way to generate huge chunks of money. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 events kind of come to mind that I'm familiar with. So I was in New Orleans for quite some time, and Jazz Fest was a huge economic driver. 500,000 people showing up. So it just kind of takes over the whole city. Yep. Another one, we had a guest out of Oklahoma, and this is just like a little small town in Oklahoma that did like a sports extravaganza and every property that the park system at the city had was fully booked. And they would do a soccer tournament, a football tournament, a lacrosse tournament, and before you know it, they've just have like 20 sports all going at the same time, these competitions or these kind of tournaments and stuff. So that was one. And then the third one, which just recently happened, and on the Gulf Coast, we have around Biloxi, Mississippi, there's like a string of maybe, I don't know, a dozen or 10 municipal governments. They all sit on the coast. And they have this, I forget the name of the event, but it's where all these old classic cars, and it just started off with like a weekend thing, and now it's ballooned out to like 12 days. Every hotel is just booked well in advance, and it's just a huge economic driver for the whole region. And all the parks departments come together and kind of collaborate for this massive event, which is a massive economic driver, and just as a good example of what can be done by Parks and Rec departments to generate that revenue.
And kind of flipping that model too, you mentioned Oklahoma, and so I'm well aware of what they have done or been able to do in Oklahoma City itself. They passed a referendum, in the late 90s, mid 90s. I might not have the dates exactly correct. It's called the MAPS program. It's a metropolitan area progressive something, like they collect a set tax. What they do is they do not embark on a project till all the monies have been collected. So say I want to build a huge aquatic center and I need $40 million. So as the tax, now that it's been voted in, once you hit that 40 million, now you can go forward with the design and the building of the aquatic center. What they've been able to do is amazing in Oklahoma City. I mean, from the downtown areas to the suburban areas or part of Oklahoma City, elevated to a world-class city. I mean, through this MAPS program. So the reason it also comes up in about 3 years, LA is going to host the Olympics. But all the water sports, the kayak, the rowing, and all that is not taking place in LA or LA County area. It's taking place in Oklahoma City because they built this awesome center through the MAPS program by self-taxing, residents and visitors to the city, and having this awesome Olympic facility that's going to now be part of the Olympics actually in LA. What is that, about 2.5 hour flight away, and so again, leveraging the dollars to kind of highlight, and the rest of the year it's used by the locals, visitors, it generates revenue and so on. But this MAPS program always comes to mind, that self-taxing is another way to do that, So.
Yeah, I think I know of the facility you're talking about. I want to say I had the director of that facility, and I had a guest on the show. They had a similar facility built by the same people, and he was saying they were spending like $60 or $70 million on it. And then he told me, he said, we toured this one in Oklahoma, and maybe my memory's wrong on this, but I thought he told me it was like $400 million for this massive complex. I mean, it is like a Disney World of swimming.
It is. Yeah. And what they did was also help make the city more green. Used to be a river it is called the Canadian River, but it used to be basically a ditch. Over time, it filled in, weeds grow, and stuff growing, and pollution and all that. So they were basically able to open up this river into this awesome attraction, and then still have the water flow through and still be dammed enough to arrange for the rowing events to take place. And they created the tower and the water, for the diving, for all of that, including the what do you call, the whitewater rafting, the kayaking and all those courses too. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, just to see what they've done. They've also created the similar river walk as in San Antonio in downtown Oklahoma City. Lots of businesses are there. And then the final piece that they just recently did, which benefits the Parks and Rec Department directly, is that they were able to divert the Interstate 40 away from downtown. It went right through the middle of town. Now it's got a loop around the city. So that alleviated about 75 acres of downtown prime space.
Wow.
So they have one of the best parks that has a little bit of everything for every age group, 0 through 99 plus, And so it's become an awesome, to your point about economic activity. Hotels are right there. The Botanic Gardens are right there in the downtown area. They have a title-winning NBA team now too. So, all of those are playing a big role into what they've been able to do there. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so we just blew past the halfway point. That was fantastic. Okay, so what I'd like to do is one of our early sponsors of the Daily Parks and Rec Show was Palco. They manufacture LED lights for your local little baseball fields and stuff, and they're able to light an entire baseball field for around $35,000, which is like a fifth of the cost.
Yeah, that's amazing.
A lot of the price tags for those cities that kind of just need the equipment, and they can work with a local electrician, or many of their clients, like City of Dallas, have all the electricians on staff and the lifts. They just need the fixtures, and so they've been a supplier for approaching 15 years to the Parks and Rec industry. So thank you, Palco, for sponsoring us from the very beginning. And so I'll play a promotion for them, and then I'm going to play our now famous Essential Services 2-minute video. I'd love to get your feedback on that one. We'll play those two, and we'll come right back and finish our conversation with Sebi.
When you invest in our high-performance LED sports arena lights, you're not just upgrading your facilities, you're helping us illuminate the untold stories of parks and recreation communities. Every purchase directly supports the Daily Parks and Rec Show, a media platform on a mission to celebrate the heart and soul of our local parks and programs. From after-school activities to summer leagues, these spaces shape lives, and their stories deserve to be told. why your support matters. Capturing community impact. Your contribution helps us assemble a talented team of digital artists, storytellers, and filmmakers to create compelling videos, articles, and short films that spotlight how Parks and Rec programs change lives. Sharing untold stories. From a child's first home run to lifelong friendships forged on the court, we'll document these priceless moments and share them with the world. Inspiring the next generation. By highlighting the joy, inclusivity, and opportunities found in our parks, we foster a deeper appreciation for these vital community spaces. Light up arenas, brighten futures. Your choice to install LED sports arena lights isn't just a smart investment in energy efficiency and performance, it's an investment in stories that deserve to be told. Be part of the story. Take action today. Purchase LED sports arena lights and help us shine a spotlight on the heartwarming stories that define our parks and communities. Contact us now to learn more about our products and how your support fuels the Daily Parks and Rec show. Together, we'll shine a light on the moments that matter most.
When we talk about essential services, what comes to mind? Police, firefighters, healthcare. But there's another essential service, often overlooked, yet always present. Parks and recreation. Parks and Rec is health. It's the walking trail that lowers blood pressure, the recreation center where seniors fight isolation, the swim lessons that prevent tragedy before it happens. This isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. Parks and Rec is safety. A playground instead of a street corner, a basketball court instead of trouble, a summer camp where every child belongs. It's not just about activity, it's about protection, prevention, and possibility. Parks and Rec is community, the festival that brings neighbors together, the cultural event that teaches respect and diversity, the open space where a city breathes. It builds bridges where division once stood. It gives people a reason to gather, to connect, to care. And Parks and Rec is economics. It strengthens property values. It drives tourism through events and trails. It saves on healthcare costs. Every dollar invested multiplies, feeding back into schools, into safety, into growth. Essential service is not just about survival, it's about thriving. And Parks and Recreation is where thriving begins. In wellness, in equity, in culture, and in joy. Parks and Rec isn't extra, it's essential. For our health, for our safety, for our communities, for our future. A message from the Parks and Recreation community.
All right. So I know we spoke a little bit about that earlier in the show, but anything to add to Parks and Rec being an essential service?
No, those are all the main points, absolutely. And overall, it is the essential service. I think, not just we talked maybe on one of the earlier episodes about the group called Park RX America, where you have medical doctors actually prescribing a walk in the park for the daily ailments, instead of actual medicine, and so I always think of that we are, the driving force behind health, wellness, quality of life, and overall, enjoyment of life too, when you get to a certain age too, and all of that piece, so. Yeah. Prolonging life, I look at it that way, and so, yeah, and I mean, you've covered it all. And I think, and again, I always use the term 0 through 99 plus, or, how do you cover all of those ages? I think the one agency that does that for most municipalities or in the communities is Parks and Recreation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it reminds me just of kind of self-care, that if you don't prepare to be healthy, you better prepare to be sick. Yeah. And so if every dollar invested in Parks and Rec does, and they say that in the video, it amplifies. Yep. It comes back tenfold. Yes. And if you don't invest in those, then you better get ready to invest in your police department and your healthcare systems, because you're going to have unhealthy people that are maybe
Right.
doing things that aren't the best for them and for your community.
Yeah. No, and talking about community, the one other piece to share about this finances and money talk is, we all get into our own zone, where we think we need a facility in our town. I always harken back to many times I've always pushed back that we don't need the newest facility in our town. So if the neighboring town, just as an example, has a, nice ice arena, 2-sheet ice arena, do we really need an ice arena in our town also? Maybe I'll have a meeting with the director of that Parks and Recreation department, or the city manager, or the mayor's office, and work out an agreement where maybe our residents, when they go to this particular facility because of our partnership, they are able to still pay the resident fees for that town and still avail the ice arena during whether it's for lessons or hockey or figure skating, or open public skating times and things like that. So I've always felt like partnerships. I think you mentioned that at the very start of the show, today's podcast, that partnerships also play a major role. And if we can create more of those meaningful partnerships, both sides benefit. Now that city is going to have, say, 50 more people coming a week and spending money at their ice arena that they might not have had before, because people were, not driving the 20 miles to get to that ice arena. But we just made a deal, so we advertise it, we market it. And those individuals from our town are going over to the other town using that ice facility. That also allows us to save maybe $5 to $6 million in not having to, mortgage our other facilities or borrow the money to in other ways to build this $5 million facility. And then it also takes another $2 million to operate and maintain, for the ongoing years, and so on. So again, thinking strategically is also very important as to how we manage money. And that's the other piece. Sometimes, our electeds and all that, God bless them, but they forget sometimes that there is an ongoing cost that you're adding to the department or the budget. When we think big, yes, people will come for the first year, but are they going to come for the third year, fourth year, because they're going to go to the next nearest new facility that just opened? And that typically happens,
Yeah. And we've even had some cities that share a lot of resources as far as like equipment and stuff. So we had one city that needed the rental fees for this big bucket truck that were, for them to maintain and service their lights. But then when they buy it, it just kind of sits there idle. But if they kind of partner with 3 or 4 neighboring cities, then they can all share the cost, rather than each of them having this big expensive $100,000 lift that sits idle most of the time. They can just collaborate, buy one, and then they can all share the burden of it.
No, absolutely. And I think I've shared this example a couple of times, but it always stuck in my head. Milwaukee in Wisconsin, they don't really have a Parks and Rec department in a sense. Many of the communities do, but what they do is they leverage the school district building. So, they actually put a gate down that comes down, and the gym and a couple of offices are now released to the local Parks and Rec department, or the entity in the municipality offering the Parks and Rec program. But they don't have a building in their name anywhere, meaning they're leveraging the school district, which is also paid for by your tax dollars. So why not leverage those facilities? But Milwaukee has done it the best so far over the years, where they do not own a single facility. It's all basically owned by the school district.
Yeah.
Leverage it for the community good, because the same kids that are, whether they go to your school or the rec center, you're serving the same community, So.
Right. That's right. Let's talk about some of those cities, because I know some of the cities that they're trying to get to 6%. They cover 6% of their cost, or they cover 10% of their cost. But you had mentioned that they have some cities out there that cover more than 100%. Maybe we can talk about them as a case study.
Yeah, and the best example I can share is the Park District example. So it's the Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District in Springfield, Oregon. And it's a perfect, throwback to the time where on the one side you have Eugene Parks and Recreation, a lot bigger city, over 200,000 people. But on the east side of the highway, Interstate 5, you have Springfield with about 80,000 people. But most of the folks from Eugene use the facilities in Springfield because, again, being a park district, as I mentioned earlier, they have the best facilities, newest facilities. Money is always being put in to upkeep them at the highest level. And the level of service is awesome. And so, it gets used to the fullest, number one, but it also has the best programs because they're able to sustain them. So their typical return on investment is about 150%.
Wow.
And their childcare program, which is one of the top notch in the country as a full-fledged program, um, over 300%. So you can imagine with that level of high percentage rate of return, you're able to sustain all your other programs that need the level of sustenance or like scholarship or financial aid. So Springfield is also the poorer town, compared to Eugene. So the community is also a community in need. So they're able to offer additional financial aid to families that can show that they do need that to avail some of the programs. So yes, and Springfield is a great example where a small town has leveraged it to the point where people from the other bigger brother sister town from across the highway is coming in and using the facilities and sustaining it to even a higher level.
Let's talk about some of maybe the short putts or some of the common mistakes that cities make that you could kind of maybe give some quick advice on. Here's a mistake almost every city makes that maybe you could avoid, or here's an easy revenue generator that maybe they might not be aware of.
Absolutely. On the day-to-day stuff, I think I've also talked about this, is legacy programs. So we call them legacy programs. It's the same 6 people in the same, I'm using Zumba as an example, the same Zumba class by the same instructor that has been comfortable in that same room for the last 20 years, say. My argument would be, if you have other opportunities to grow that same Zumba class, if the instructor is beloved and so on, why not grow it to other facilities? The instructor makes more money and you generate more revenue, because and the reason I bring up legacy programs is that my experience has shown, because I've had the feedback from participants, new participants, when they join the class, they're not treated as well. It's not very welcoming, because like you have your private club and now you're saying, oh, we don't want new people in our class, so they're made to feel uncomfortable. So I always kind of harp on that, is like, if you have these older programs that have been running for many, many years, let's start from scratch again, or make it grow and be more inclusive. So that's an easy, quick fix that'll actually generate you more dollars, because people easily get turned off when they're not being welcomed at the same level as, say, the same 5 or 6 people that have always been the mainstay of the program. Sure, it's ongoing. Maybe it's generating some revenue, but now that revenue could be multiplied by 2 more zeros, 1 more zero, and could be easily done. But many municipalities fall into that trap, like, these are beloved and old customers that have been there for 20 years, not old in age, but old in time, that they've been there for so long. And I don't want to disrupt that class. Let's not do that program or expand that program. I've heard that many, many times. And I think it's a self-inflicted wound, so to speak, where we could generate revenue. And the second piece I wanted to share was, when we are asked for budget cuts, the biggest thing I've seen is that staff will come back with like, oh, Sebi, I can do this program and grow it and I can generate more revenue. Typically, it doesn't happen that way. So what I suggest is maybe actually take the cut. Then if you show that you can generate more revenue within a year later, you put that in the budget, you're able to actually make a rebound within a year. If you take, otherwise what happens is, you say you're going to generate the revenue and you do not generate the revenue, then you're going to be reminded that, oh, we're going to cut it even more. So guess what they're cutting, the pressure stays, about cutting your budget, and if you show the other way around, I feel like take the cut, then show that you can generate revenues, then you get that money back, the next year, and so on.
Right.
So that's another little trick I've learned over the years.
Yeah, and there, like you said, I can imagine there's a lot of fear of cutting an existing program that's liked by a few, but really your goal should be to kind of pack the house, make sure every class is full, make sure you've got a lot of new people coming in, and I guess if you did like an inventory of every program that you run, there's going to be ones that are full, that are busting at the seams, that are having to turn people away, and then on the bottom there's going to be some that are like half full, or maybe even a quarter full.
Correct. And also, like, you might be full in one of your rec centers on the same class, but not full at the other. So maybe the thought might be, if they're willing to drive, or if you are able to offer some kind of accommodation as far as transportation, do it in the place that's, lacking the numbers to, fill that up also, because, when data points are collected, that'll show that there's an equal distribution of the usage of the facility or the program also. So.
Yeah.
And that's always, again, a fear of taking something away is always a fear, in the community and among staff too. So.
Yeah. Now, I was looking over your LinkedIn profile, and you have like a consultant thing. Was that always there, or did that recently pop up? Or tell me a little bit more about that.
No, sure. No, thank you for the opportunity. No, that's been there for about the last 6 years or so. I've always felt, you can maybe sometimes hear my frustration with some of these ideas that I share
Uh,
is that having learned a lot over the years, what I've felt is that, we've talked about master planning, strategic planning. I feel like it should be from the bottom up. When you hire a large consulting firm, I've always felt that, they're basically top down. They might involve the staff at one or two levels, but they do the same, sticky notes or the dots on the wall, which program do you like, or, the same surveys. And nowadays with the use of AI, I feel like they've kind of, basically become, if I read one master plan in one city, I'm reading exactly the same language in another
mm,
city, especially if it's done by the same firm. And I know that they do great work and all that. It's not meant as a hit back at some of these firms, but what I feel like what created my situation with the PNR analysis is that let's not do these bigger plans. Let's do the more of the small business plans that are more effective, easy to implement, and then
mhm.
you move forward. And then you can always put these ideas or the smaller plans together into your master plan. You just created your master plan by adopting smaller plans and much more cost effective and much more results oriented, more results bearing. So
Mm.
and
And
that
so
so
you
it came up about 6 years ago. Yeah.
about 6 years ago. And so, how many cities have you kind of worked with since you've started that?
A few, because I always have my full-time job too, so this was as
Right.
a side thing. I've done about 10 or 11, I would say. I'm working on the 11th one. That's why I wanted to so I've done
Yeah.
10 for sure. And again, concentrating more on, like, a good example was a few months ago, I did a business plan, a business operations plan for a brand new sports complex that's opening in one of the cities in Oregon. And they basically hired me to write up the business plan as to how they would manage this facility, because it's totally new to them, and they have this opportunity, not just about economic development in the community, tournaments, local use and all of that, but growing, and how do they put it all together into one package. And so I spent a week there, did all the public meetings, talked to the stakeholders, staff at all levels, even the staff that are actually going to mow the grass. And we even talked about, like, for rec leagues, do you mow the grass on a soccer field at the full, say, half an inch level, or do you mow it at the inch and a half level? Because at that level, they might not care about how the ball moves, but at the travel, soccer level, they might care about, if I pass the ball from one side of the field, I should be able to get it to the other side of the field. So we talked about
Mm.
nuances like that, again, from my learned experiences, which they might not have been able to get if there was a bigger master planning effort and all that. So I felt like, or I feel like I was able to contribute more directly to their success.
Yeah. Now, how is important is it to, because at least it's been told to me that a lot of times you spend all this time and effort in creating a master plan, whole year, spend maybe quarter million or more, and then
Yep,
it just kind of sits on a shelf
absolutely.
until the next time that your time to make another one. But it's not really a living, breathing document, which is, I
No.
think that's going to be a benefit to these smaller plans, that you can
Yes.
actually work the plan.
And if you have that level of leadership or staff in your department, you could find a facilitator. And that's what I was able to do. I think I mentioned this on your prior show about Davenport, Iowa. We basically saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in doing our strategic plan, master plan, and the comprehensive plan all in house. And we
Mm.
got as many as, I think we talked about, 160 plus people at the final few meetings, because that showed the level of commitment and the excitement, being part of something, because we allowed them to be inclusive from the very beginning, not just at the
Mm.
strategic point or individual points during the process. So it was
Yeah.
it was a good way to do that. And then once you have that level of buy-in, guess what? That plan is not sitting on the shelf, because they're going to be reminding you every day, like, oh, remember we worked on that. So now how do we do this? So
Right.
yeah.
Now, maybe speak a little bit more about how important it is to get buy-in from the community and as many stakeholders as possible, versus it just being kind of an in-house walled garden where it's just the people of the Parks and Rec staff. How
Yep.
important is it to get buy-in from as many people as possible? And then what are the stakeholders you want to make sure not to leave out?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest group that we usually do not include in some of these efforts is your competition. I know the word competition scares people or staff off, but the idea is the local Y might be doing the same things you are at a different way, different level, different way of doing things. Have them be your partner. The local Boys and Girls Club, other, for-profit or non-profit partners too. We've done that in many places where even private fitness centers became our partners, where we didn't have to put a fitness center in your rec center that you just built. You leverage the fitness center at a private facility, and again, you don't have to buy the equipment, you don't have to buy the instructors, you don't have to buy the staff, or hire the staff, and you're still able to offer a fitness program at another facility that's already existing in town and things like that. So all of those things do play a role in this.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, anything else that you've kind of learned throughout this whole, maybe think about what was year one of these 6 years? What did year one look like? And then how have you kind of evolved over these 6 years?
Well, I learn every day, so every time I'm even engaged in an initial conversation, which does not even potentially lead to being hired and so on, I take that as a learned experience, and how do I make myself better, to be able to sell the idea of what would be appropriate for each community. And again, what I'm sharing with you today in the podcast too is that every community is different, and so it's, but that's what I've learned also. A lot of the, master plans are done by the bigger companies that basically are, it's a cookie cutter system, and what I'm saying is that it cannot be a cookie cutter system, because every city, every community is different, and so on. And that's I think the biggest challenge in this process. We all want to do the right thing, but I think we always sometimes, or many times, go towards the easy path, which is like, oh, we'll just get the well-known company to come and do this, and what you get might be the same plan that was just done for a city 5 hours away or something like that. So.
Yeah. All right. So as we're kind of coming towards the end of the show here, I wanted you to speak on, we actually have our first internship. After working with y'all for this last year, I've kind of got introduced to YPN. Didn't even know what that was when I started this media company, but that was one of the first things that I noticed needed help, is creating a network of young professionals at the national level and at the state level. And Michael Moreau is an internship out of Pennsylvania that is now going to help run that Friday show. So any message to the value of a young professionals network and how maybe we can help contribute to that and build it up?
Now, you've heard me talk about this too. I've been supporting the Young Professionals Network since 2012 or so, through NRPA and other, even state, and even when I was in the academy, so the academy too. I value it so much so that even every place I've worked over the last 10 years, I've asked for budgetary allocation to even have a paid internship, and especially guided towards the marginalized population. So historically Black, historically Latino, and historically Native or First Nation colleges and universities. We just had a student here just finish her term with us, a 12-week term paid internship from San Francisco State University, which is considered a majority Latino university here in San Francisco. And she did some great work for us. So even a good example, I wish I had many hands. I could do a lot of the work myself, but starting to create a volunteer management program for our downtown parks here in San Francisco. She was able to do all the groundwork for us. We've run 2 sample programs of volunteer registration through the website, getting the emails, and actually doing the on-site program of cleaning up our rose garden and other area gardens and so on. So she is not only be able to create the program, but also implement the program from the website to the actual work done on site. So to see it successful, now we have a program we can trust that's going to move forward and hopefully continue to have the level of volunteerism available to the community. So internships and interns, and just even opening the doors to them. You look at some of the big cities, like when I was in Louisville, you could have an arborist all the way down to a zoologist in the system itself, and every profession in between in each of those letters of the alphabet, from engineers to water engineers to horticulturists, naturalists, and then, referees, umpires, coaches, you name it. I mean, you can fill A through Z of every profession. And so it's a good way to also open their eyes and ears and actually seeing some of that in action. And especially some of the bigger cities should definitely have internship programs that will help the career. And the last thing to share on that is that, as you know, fewer and fewer universities are actually offering still the Parks Recreation Administration program. Used to be over 500 universities 30 plus years ago. Now there's barely 55, 60 universities, because it's split up into different programs, sports management, event management, facility management, which is all good, but they're getting very specialized, but they're not understanding the full scope of what's out there in parks and recreation. So
yeah.
we become the purveyors of that then. So
Yeah, and so just to speak a little bit about our internship program, and we still have about three more slots open for an internship for interns this currently right now. So we've got like 4 slots available. Michael took the first one, which we're in conversation with a few others. But if you know of an intern, or if you're listening and you're an intern or a college student that would like to learn how to create content, build community, learn all the editing software and the hardware stack and all that kind of stuff, and work with your skill set inside of the Parks and Rec community, from broadcast journalism to marketing and stuff like that, we would love to start that conversation, because I think by the time you leave DPRS Media Company, you'll learn how to build a media company start to finish and to create content for an industry that you might be in love with. So really excited to finally launch that.
Hopefully you wouldn't be opposed to me sending over the student that just finished the internship with us, over to you.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Any intern you have, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation, and you never know where things lead. And the best thing about our internship program is you'll actually be interviewing and working with departments that at the end of your internship program, many departments are looking for people that understand the modern day marketing and branding and messaging to get the word out about the special events that they're hosting, the programs they offer, and they're just kind of grasping. But you will actually probably be interviewing and talking to a dozen potential employers. And I know when college students graduate, a lot of the struggles is they don't have a job waiting for them at the end of their college. So this is a way where you can get a skill and then have great conversations and a network built for yourself. On the day you exit, you may have many job offers from the people that you've worked with. Okay, so I have a question for you from another one of our frequent guests, Jonathan O. Skinner, over there in Lake Elsinore, California. And his question for you is, and then I'll need you to come up with a question for my next guest. But his question for you, Sevi, is, out of all the programs and events that people thought would be failure, how did you change that to be a success and change people's lives?
Well, the biggest one that I always cite is again, Springfield Willamette Lane Park and Recreation District. We created the One Pass program. So the idea was to keep kids busy and engaged, learning and still recreating from Memorial Day through Labor Day. And, the first year we only sold 700 of these passes in 2014. In the past 2 years, they've sold over 13,000 of these passes. So the tradition has continued. So not only is it a revenue generator, but you're keeping the kids active and occupied, and especially in a community like Springfield, where the need is there for the kids to be, encouraged, inspired, and so on. So, and the best thing is that it's not just Parks and Recreation. Other entities have come on, like, we started early on with like the local Natural History Museum in Eugene, the Raptor Museum, the local, not AAA, but 1A baseball team, the Emeralds that play there, the local soccer team, Lane United FC. So you could attend a variety of things. The local, in those days, $1 theater that used to be downtown, they showed summer movies at 10:30 in the morning. So lots of great partners. And besides the 2 Parks and Rec departments, Eugene and Springfield. And then the final kicker was that you get to ride the bus for free, so, and here's the main thing. People thought that this would be a failure because people are going to abuse or overuse the card, but how many people actually go, say, miniature golfing or, do something more than once a week or maybe even once a day, and the idea was that, this would be a failure, but the results show that actually generated very high revenues. The best example is the Raptor Museum that might typically get 200 kids might come up all summer, because it's a little bit outside the town and so on. We even got the local bus provider, the mass transit, to make a bus route through about a quarter mile from the Raptor Center, because that was the closest we could get to on the route. And that increased their traffic to over 2,000, in the second summer and so on. So not only did they generate revenue, but, again, kids were being empowered, inspired, and, learning and all that. So, and then we tied also the free swim lessons to all third graders to this program too. So individuals with the cards also got signed up automatically if they were especially third graders to the free swim lessons, because again, you mentioned in your promo too about a life skill or life-saving skill, and we're water city in Springfield, next to a big river and so on. So again, all around, it was thought of as a initial, it could be abused and potentially a failure. It's now one of the most successful programs in that part of Oregon, and actually the biggest partner that came on board is the school district. So they actually help promote the program to sell it to all the kids that are in the school district. So
yeah. And if I understand that correctly, we had something similar in New Orleans where we have a beautiful aquarium, we have a really good zoo, and then we have this very famous World War II museum. And instead of paying like $50 to go to one,
right.
you can buy a single pass that gives you access to all three, and then they kind of share the revenue. And so that's the general concept, correct?
Yes, and actually, I was inspired by what I experienced when I worked in Chicago. That in the mid to late '90s, in the Chicago area, on Tuesdays they welcomed not only the free days, but then on the weekends they allowed you, especially Memorial Day through Labor Day, what they call the Discovery Pass. So like the Field Museum, the Museum of Science and Industry, and a bunch of other, the Art Institute, you could go in by just showing the card, and it was a $50 card in those days, and I think it still is fairly low price because the idea was to bring people in,
Right.
And
Yeah.
it has done that, and here's the thing, you make revenue too, because that 8-year-old or 10-year-old, because we also made it for 16 and under, so meaning they're being driven by their parents. So the parents are not more than likely going to sit in the car. They might also come in and say, oh, I'm going to enjoy the game, or I'm going to take a look at the Raptor Museum. They're paying the full fare, so to speak, so
Right.
you're generating additional revenue also, so.
Yeah, I love it. The key is to kind of pack the house. You'd rather have a full museum than an empty museum.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what question would you like to leave for my next guest?
Well, it's the question that I've always struggled with, in the sense that, I've not been able to find another city like Milwaukee that does recreation at such a level where they're able to leverage, facilities that are already existing in the local municipal setup or the tax structure. So the question would be, if there's anybody out there, or if you know of other cities, I would like to know which other city does it as well as Milwaukee, especially on the part about leveraging existing facilities that taxpayers have built.
So what other cities are similar to Milwaukee that leverage all their facilities?
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially for recreation. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was another great episode. I'm glad we got to talk a lot about this topic that's many times glossed over or avoided. I don't know many accountants that get into Parks and Rec, so that's usually something that Parks and Rec people can be a little weaker in, is the accounting side, the financial side, but having that financial mind as part of your Parks and Rec department really can help out a lot.
And in closing, if I can share a quick anecdote,
Sure.
so typically in recreation, staff would come by and say, oh, I generated, or I had 10 more individuals sign up for the class. So Sevi, I generated $600 more. Can I spend the $600? And then I have to let them know that that's not how the budgeting works, that you have to wait till the next budget cycle to be able to spend the $600. But the good thing is I encourage them to oh, this is great. So maybe grow it to $1,200. And then you allocate, the expense tied to the revenue of $1,200 for the next year's budget, and then you get to do your program and grow it even more, and so on. So, but they're of that mindset, oh, I made money, so I get to spend it right away.
Yeah. You have to you got to defer that celebration one more year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's it. Well, Sevi, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully, are you going to CRPA next year? Or CRPS?
You mean the California one, CPRS?
Yeah.
No, in Long Beach. Yes, I'll be there. I attended the one in Sacramento in March. That was awesome. I made some new connections here because my first one here fully, in California. So yes, it's a great organization. So yeah.
Yeah, it looks like we'll be attending. So definitely, if we're going to go there and you're going to be there, you need to come on the show and give us a little 15 to 20 minute rundown of what you think.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you for helping us kick off another great week with the Daily Parks and Rec Show, and have a great rest of your week. And thank you for all the service you've been providing for us and helping us to build out this media company for the industry.
No, happy to, Craig. Take care. Thank you.
Yep. Take care, Sevi. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that was Sevi Ghose. She's actually on our board of advisors, has been one of the one of the greats in Parks and Rec that's just been sharing wisdom. It's been at this for, I guess, 30 or 40 years, pretty much dedicated his whole life to Parks and Rec, and is just one of the masters that taught a lot of the schools and done a lot of breakout sessions. And so love to create content with Seve. All right, so T-minus 1 week. Next Sunday, we will be driving to Jekyll Island, which is where Georgia is hosting their Parks and Rec convention, followed by Kentucky, followed by Louisiana. So weeks 1, 2, and 3 of November, the show will be hitting the road. We'll be bringing all of our mics and cameras and lights and setup and everything else so that we can really try to capture what goes on at the state events, at least in those 3 states. And we've got a lot of other states that are very interested that are also, we're trying to just, cross the T's and dot the I's so that we can also attend. We'd like to attend at least 12. I think we'll end up doing 9 by the end of this year. So maybe in 2026, we'd like to do 12, maybe even 20 if we can get it up there. Because I really just think that the stuff that goes on in these state associations, it's a shame that a lot of times it just gets, they put out such great wisdom in these breakout sessions. And it really doesn't get across the country because there's such great messages that happen at the in-person event. So if you haven't been to your local state convention or even a national convention, you're really missing out. So I encourage everyone to attend. And we are going to have a really great setup and show at Georgia, Kentucky, and Louisiana coming up. So looking forward to that. All right. So we also have our first YPN this Friday, hosted by our intern, Michael Moreau. And so as we're working to build out that, and as I said before with Seve, we are looking for 3 more interns to work with as we kind of build out all the different shows and build out the whole media company. We need a lot more bandwidth when it comes to hosting these shows. And so we're going to, part of that is going to be through our internship program. So if you're interested, if you're a college student in Parks and Recreation, or if you're a college student in marketing or broadcast journalism or journalism in general, please give us a call. We'd love to have you on the team, at least for a semester, and share with you all that we've learned on creating content and community in the Parks and Rec industry, and how that can really help to give you some soft skills down the road that I think make you even more employable. And then you'll also meet a massive network of Parks and Rec directors that are looking for talent just like you to hire for the local government to help get the word out and be in charge of their marketing department for your local Parks and Rec. So, all right, that was another great show. Seve, thank you so much. Again, thanks everybody for getting us to our 300th episode. I'm going to head and close out the show with a promotion for our YPN, which is our Young Professionals Network on Friday. And then I'll also, after that, we'll run a little promo about how vendors can participate and help us to create a great media company for this industry. So this is Craig LeBlanc, the doorman, signing off with another great show. Thanks, Seve. Love you guys. See y'all soon. Bye.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics and powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
Are you ready to lead the next generation of Parks and Rec? Whether you're a student, intern, or rising leader, welcome to the Young Professionals Network by DPRS Media Co. Our mission? To empower early career professionals in parks and recreation through mentorship, visibility, and real-world leadership development. Our vision? A national network of passionate, prepared, and purpose-driven leaders who shape the future of public service. Starting now. Powered by the Daily Parks and Rec Show, YPN gives you access to exclusive interviews, career-building resources, behind-the-scenes content, and live events, all created by and for the next wave of Parks and Rec professionals. Learn from seasoned directors, build your brand, get involved with national conversations that matter. Whether you're in youth sports, facilities, programming, or policy, YPN is your launchpad. Young Professionals Network, your career, your community, your story.
At DPRS Media Co., we believe Parks and Recreation isn't just a service, it's the heartbeat of our communities. We exist to honor the people, the vendors, and the leaders shaping the future of Parks and Rec. Our mission is simple: to tell their stories, highlight their careers, and celebrate their essential work. Our vision is bold: to be the trusted hub where leaders, vendors, and communities unite, inspiring innovation, sharing wisdom, and building a stronger, healthier nation. Through over 220 live shows and 6 weekly series, the Leadership Series, Facility Maintenance, Young Professionals Network, Youth Sports Mastery, The Rec Room, and Growing Leaders, plus our industry-leading newsletter, the weekly Parks and Rec Post, we're building a media platform made for the Parks and Rec community. And now, we're inviting strategic partners to co-create this story with us. As a partner, you'll gain 12 hours of annual live exposure with custom shows highlighting your expertise, polished 60-second promos refined for maximum impact, year-round visibility with dozens of replays across our media network, premium features in our newsletter, and amplified social media reach across LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. This is your chance to educate, inspire, and lead while connecting directly with the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. This is DPRS Media Co. Let's build the future of Parks and Rec together.